good reviews, 27, I think it's 27 at this point. There's been many few good reviews, and there's been lots of albums recently that I thought were worth talking about, but I didn't necessarily have a huge amount to say about them in a full video. You know how it is at this point. If you've watched this channel enough, you know that sometimes there are albums I just don't always have a huge amount to say. So here we are with a few good reviews, little brief reviews on each album that I want to discuss. Hopefully you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts on any of these albums in the comments section, and enjoy the video. I was completely unaware of Beabadoobee. What a name, by the way. Beabadoobee, what a name. Before this album, apparently she had a big TikTok song. Loads of songs get huge from TikTok these days, which we all are aware of. But I listened to the song, it was like a coffee song. It was terrible, man. It was terrible. But for whatever reason, it gained virality from there. I don't know what meme it came out of, but whatever. So this album came out and I was just unaware of who she was. A lot of people were saying how good it was, how kind of like throwback it was to like the 2000s, that pop rock era. And there were some moments that definitely felt like that, especially the first song. I was very much ready to get into that mindset of that sound. But it quickly kind of lost itself. There were some tracks where they were really good, you know, the energy was there, the vocal performance was really distinct and exciting. But then as the album went on, I just started to lose a sense of who she was as a vocalist, especially when you go into those like acoustic indie songs, which are like really not good for her, I don't think. She just lost all that personality that she was giving us on the more indie rock type tracks. Like, you know, there's some good tracks, but overall I'd say most of this is throwaway, which is a shame. But yeah, I mean, there's some potential here, so I'll definitely keep an eye on Beabadoobee from now on. I was fairly let down with the Elzhi album. I usually find his insight with his lyrics really impressive. Just has such great wordplay, great lyrical themes across his albums, but nothing really stood out with me on this one. I gave it quite a few listens, couldn't really pick out much at all. His delivery was generally quite underwhelming. Just everything about it just felt flat. Like the beats were just pretty standard. Felt quite typical for, you know, rap music. Just nothing really popped at any point. Just not the Elzhi I've come to really like. Very odd, but I guess it's just one of those cases where you can't like everything, and this Elzhi album just ended up being like that. So Future Islands have always been really bloody good at doing that one thing in their career where they just put out that fantastic song, and each album has a fantastic song, Seasons being the best and just one of my favorite songs of the entire decade. And then you've got tracks like Ran, then you've got on this album, you got For Sure. Like, they just have this blissfulness that they just absolutely nail on tracks like this. But the issue with this album is that there aren't really many moments like this. There's one song, and then the rest of the album is completely forgettable. Like, I don't know, man. Sam has such a distinctive vocal tone. I don't know how they can't use that to their advantage. I think at this point, I'm just kind of not expecting much more from them anymore in the future, because they're just giving the same each time. And I don't know, maybe we should just whip out some more Hemlock Urns, because that rap album from last year was so bloody good. And you know, Future Islands are kind of hitting a bit of a brick wall. You know, sometimes you just don't get music, and this Oneohtrix Point Never album is the prime example of that, because I truly don't get this. It's fragmented, disjointed, strange throughout. There's a certain quality to it that I could totally see people being like enamored by it and being sucked away into whatever he's doing here. But like the vocals that come through on some of the tracks are really bad to me. Even the Weekend one didn't sound too good in my opinion. The instrumentals just don't do anything for me. Like, I just am not really seeing the appeal here. But I know this guy is really significant. He's much more significant than a lot of people realize with his contributions to 2010's music. But it doesn't mean that I can truly say I enjoy a lot of it. And this one just, yeah, lost me. It just loses me. I get to a certain point in the album and I stop paying attention, and I'm just not seeing anything that can bring me back in. The melodies aren't really strong. The ideas just don't really form or anything. I don't know, just not for me. But I can, again, see someone giving this like a 9 out of 10, and I would get it. If they explained why, I would get it. But for me, I just don't. Jessica Winter definitely dropping some really cool, mellow, while also being quite upbeat pop music here. The lyrics are very melodramatic, they're very sad at points, but she's managing to turn it in a really cool way that makes the songs sound happier than they actually are. The track Sad Music is a great track, a really great track, and I'm just excited to see where she goes, because she's definitely a really interesting artist to listen to, and I'm just hoping that there's going to be an album coming next year and she could even blow up from it as well. So definitely check this out. It's really cool. I feel like you would definitely be into this again if you're into more like the mellow type stuff. It's worth your time, really worth your time. Mary Lattimore is just wonderful. Like, she honestly deserves a lot more attention in the ambient type world. The vivid details behind her music are just so luscious and glorious to listen to. I've never really fully loved an album from her, which is annoying because her past two have been really good, but there's something kind of holding me back just ever so slightly. But goddamn, like, you need to be checking this out. Mary is well deserving of way more praise. Like, this should be being picked up by Pitchfork or whatever and getting best new musics, should be reviewed by, you know, a lot more people than she ever gets. But like, man, she's just so lovely. This album's just so lovely, it's so hard to deny. This Joji album, man, is so uninspired from start to finish, especially on a vocal level. I'm just really needing more vocally here. Like, he is just putting in the bare minimum from start to finish, and it's just boring. I can't really give a word other than that. I mean, some of the beats are fine, some of the beats are pretty good, but like, god damn, give me something more in the vocals. It just feels like he's trying too hard to like give off a vibe rather than actually putting in effort in the vocals, because that's really what we need from a singer. Like, you need something coming out of the singer's voice, or it just ends up being so dull. It finally picks up in the last two tracks, I think. I think those last two tracks were really quite good. Like, they had way more excitement to them than any of the album. And that Eve Toomer feature would have been great as well if the mixing on Eve's voice wasn't so horrendous. That would have actually been another highlight if it weren't for that. But really, I'm just kind of like nitpicking little bits where I think this was good, because it's so long, this album, and it drags on, that the majority of it is just so throwaway. Pretty let down with this Open Mike Eagle album, honestly. Would have happily done a full review for it, but I just didn't have a lot to say, which is weird because Brick Body Kids Still Daydream being his last like full-length album, there was a lot to say. Don't watch my review for that though. It was one of my worst reviews ever. Like, honestly, really not a good review. But if I were to review it today, I would have plenty of things to say in the lyrics and the concept that he delivered with that one. But that's the thing with this album, like, the delivery of the lyrics just isn't really hitting. His performances are really just so to me. I don't know if I'm just growing off that kind of brand of, you know, the indie nerd type rap aesthetic that a lot of, you know, the mid-2010s gave us. I don't really listen to Milo as much as I used to. Like, I don't know if that brand of rap is just falling for me these days, or I don't know, but Mike just isn't really giving me his usual enjoyable performances. And then you've got some of the features, which I think are really weak. The main single, I think, for this album, a lot of people say it's a great track. Didn't hear what people were hearing there. Some of the choruses, the hooks on Head Ass, gotta be the worst he's ever done. Like, that just, isn't even funny and it doesn't sound good. Like the comedic timing with that is just so off, which I find odd. Because he's usually relatively funny. He's not hilarious, but he's a pretty funny guy. But that track just did not land at all. Black Mirror episode, really bad hook. The closing track, one of the worst choruses there too. Like everything just doesn't land here. Like I'm just not getting what I usually get from him. And yeah, it's just really whatever. Lyrics fine, I guess. Beats fine. Jónsi is the Sigur Rós singer who I really like in a solo capacity because of the Undiscovered Gems video I did for his 2010 solo album Go, which never gets talked about, which is weird because some of Sigur Rós's albums are considered some of the best of all time by literally every music publication, every music nerd you'll ever come across, but that one solo album never gets talked about, which is weird. I'm always looking out for his solo stuff. So this new one actually appeals to me a lot because it's definitely got the same qualities of what you'd expect from him, like some of the slower, more like really luscious chamber pop instrumentals that are really, really endearing and nice. But then you've got some random tracks where the instrumentals are just so offbeat that you're kind of just wondering where he came up with these. And that one track with Robin too, the weird collaboration, which sounds like it should have fit on that Eurovision film, which he had a lot of songs on from earlier this year. Like it's that kind of song where the weirdness of it just ends up making it work. But yeah, I think the quirkiness of this album actually works in its favor, even if I don't think it's quite great. But I appreciate that Jónsi went and took a few weird little detours with this one because I think it, for the most part, pays off. Certainly not the most notable Mountain Goats album in their career, in their discography, but you know what? They've dropped so many at this point that it doesn't really matter. They're going to drop some every now and then that are just fine, just decent. This one, Getting Into Knives, certainly ends up in that category. Kind of falls in the bottom tier of their discography, to be honest, but it's still solid. Like they're still a good band, they're still good at making music, so it's enjoyable for what it is. Bell Swamp Connection is a lovely track, really, really stellar. Honestly, they always have at least one track on each album that I just go head over heels for, and that is this album's version of that. But you know, tracks like Famous, fine. As Many Candles as Possible, thought that was really boring and mediocre. Actually, was surprised to hear such a mediocre song like that on one of their albums, but still, it's solid. Certainly isn't as conceptual as previous ones that they've done. You know, it's no Goths, it's no Beat the Champ, but it is a solid release, and I praise them for still sounding good this far into their career. I was very surprised, and some of you may have also been very surprised when I reviewed the EP that came out earlier in the year from Loona, that I actually think it was really good, and still to this day I think it's going to be one of my favourite EPs of the year. Again, look, I'm not usually someone that talks a huge amount about K-pop on this channel, but I think Loona are really, really talented and fun and infectious. And this new EP here didn't really hit the same way, but it was alright. You know, there's nothing too like bad about it. The tracks do sound pretty good, they're produced well, the performances are good. It just didn't really hit the same way as the other one. I feel like that one just had a distinctness to it, whereas this one seemed just very much safe type of dance pop tunes. Like it's kind of forgettable in a lot of ways, but it's pretty solid while it's playing. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they do next year. I'm sure they'll have a big album out, and I'll definitely be checking it out because there's a lot of potential with this group. The usual appeal of Neil Cicierega, I think, is pretty clear, pretty obvious. Really offbeat, really quirky. The mashups are just so off-kilter and weird, but yet they often work really well. They're funny, like just how you want a mashup album to be. Just the random like combinations are so out of this world from Neil, and yet the replay value, the replayability is just not there, especially with this new one. Like more so than ever, I just don't see when I'd ever put this on. Like it might be just this brand of mashup music anyway, but it's funny, for that one play. You know, you find a random one on YouTube, you laugh, and then you kind of just carry on your day, and you're never going to listen to it again. So that's kind of the issue really with Neil. And the thing is that I think what you should aim for is to make a good song rather than the joke, because like for example Girl Talk, the 2010 album All Day, I think that's one of the best mashup albums I've ever heard, or mashups ever, because it's so damn fun. Like everything is so catchy, the pacing of every track is just speedy, it's energetic, it's like a workout album, but also the mashups are really smart and clever, whereas this here just feels like you find it funny and then you're never going to play it again. It might make you chuckle a little bit, but even then, it's just not even that funny to begin with. Like some of the mashups here were just kind of like meme type humor. I don't know, maybe it's just going over my head a bit, but it just doesn't land really, this one, which is weird because I do think Neil is great, but I don't really think this one had much to offer really. And thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, hopefully you have a good day as well. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell me your thoughts on these albums in the comments. Thank you, goodbye, and goodbye.